There's this strange book. When it was first published, nobody paid any attention to it. The author even had to pay out of his own pocket to get it published. But 20 years later, this book suddenly sold nearly 35 million copies and rocketed to become a global bestseller. The book I'm talking about is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. He's a famous American entrepreneur, speaker, and author, and this book has been praised by the media as the starting point for mastering wealth. In the book, the poor dad is the author's biological father. Although he was a university professor with a stable income, he was saddled with debt his whole life. The rich dad is the father of his friend, Mike. He dropped out of high school, but managed to build a billion-dollar financial empire and became Kiyosaki's idol. From the lives of these two fathers, Kiyosaki saw clearly the root causes of the gap between the rich and the poor. Through interesting stories, he reveals the hidden rules behind money. Kiyosaki wrote in his book, "The reason a person is poor is not about how much money they can earn, but about their thoughts and actions." If you don't master the basic logic of wealth, you'll likely just be an employee your whole life. That's right, if we can't break free from a poor person's mindset, no matter how hard we try, we'll always be poor. Hey, welcome back to Step Forward, the channel for personal development through great books. This week I'm bringing you a talk with the message, if you don't change these mindsets, you'll stay poor, no matter how hard you work. Inspired by the very famous book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Let's dive in. The Endless Rat Race Trap. At the beginning of the book, Kiyosaki tells a really interesting childhood story. When he was 9, he went to work at Rich Dad's supermarket for 10 cents an hour. Unexpectedly, Rich Dad refused and said, "If I give you the salary you want, you'll be tied to this supermarket for this amount of money for the rest of your life. You'll only ever spend a little bit of salary." This story is a lot like most people. We're often stuck in a fixed, vicious cycle. It's wake up, go to work, get paid, pay the bills. Then wake up, go to work, pay the bills again. Kiyosaki calls this work model the endless rat race. People are like mice in a cage, running their legs off, the wheel spinning furiously, but when they wake up the next day, they're still stuck in the same cage. These people only see their paycheck, and they believe that as long as they get a higher salary, they can buy more things and be happier. But in reality, they can't see the opportunities to get rich outside of their job in this endless cycle of busyness. And they don't even have the awareness to seek change for themselves. Back to Kiyosaki's story of working at the supermarket, Rich Dad not only didn't raise his salary, but also had him work for free. This forced him to find a breakthrough from his current situation. The author went back to the supermarket with a burning motivation and started to observe and think. He then discovered that the comic books in the supermarket weren't selling at all and could only be sold to the recycling station as scrap. So he decided to use all his savings to buy hundreds of these comic books and opened a reading room in his garage. From this formula, he made a small profit by renting out the comics. In life, how many of us are caught in this endless rat race, and many don't even know they're in the cage? We become so exhausted that we don't have time to think, just living like survival machines, working for money. However, those who are always focused on money often fail at making money. Therefore, to open the cage, we must stop running like this. Just as Kiyosaki did, you need to use your running time to think, to find a way to break this endless race. Blindly following a fixed mindset. In psychology, there is a concept called the social clock, which refers to the things society dictates you should do at a certain age. This is similar to the poor dad's mindset, which was deeply ingrained in his thinking and passed down to his son. Study hard, get into a famous university, find a good job, and then work until retirement. Kiyosaki grew up with that social clock, but gradually he felt more and more that he was wrong. He observed his peers around him. After graduation, they got married, bought a house on a mortgage. After having kids, they had to spend more and started using credit cards. These people seemed to have a house, a car, and a stable life, but in reality, they didn't have much in savings. Every day they had to rack their brains to work extra jobs, hustling here and there to cover their over-budget expenses. and if they unfortunately ran into a crisis, they would be completely helpless, unable to cope. At the same time, the author also witnessed a friend of his, after being laid off, bring his whole family, young and old, to the company to beg the boss for mercy. Even his own poor dad had to face unemployment when an economic crisis hit and couldn't find a way to make a living. Therefore, the author followed his rich dad's advice. He quit his stable but herd-following job and said goodbye to the survival mode of having a single fixed job. Kiyosaki expanded his reach, getting into many industries. He later founded a real estate investment company and made his first large sum of money. Rich Dad said, "Whatever career you choose, keep an open mind. What's scarier than cementing your own mindset? In life, the most frightening thing is to run on a single track, and the thing to avoid most is following the herd mentality. Therefore, only by breaking free from cookie-cutter thinking can we achieve wealth. A narrow mindset prevents us from seeing the big picture." In the book, Kiyosaki has a female friend who is a journalist. One day, she came to him to complain. She said that her articles were recognized by readers, but the books she wrote with all her heart and effort didn't sell at all. She felt undervalued and could only live on her meager salary from the newsroom, unable to achieve financial freedom. The author suggested that she should learn about marketing and sales. When she heard this advice, she got annoyed. She told Kiyosaki not to mistake her for a salesperson, and that she would never allow herself to do a simple job like sales. They parted on bad terms. Kiyosaki felt it was a great pity. If she could have escaped her narrow career perspective and mastered the skills of market operations, her income would surely not be limited to a small writing fee. The author advises us to think of our career as a net, and that we need to deploy it holistically. Here, I'll use the author himself as an example. Every step Kiyosaki took was like a move on a career chessboard. Every skill was a thread in the network leading to wealth and prosperity. And only by expanding the network and weaving it tightly can the flow of wealth pour in like water. Put your vision on a big picture canvas. Develop your thinking into a holistic mindset to have a chance at achieving prosperity. A lack of strategy makes hard work useless. In the book, Kiyosaki tells a friend of Kiyosaki's who worked 3 jobs at once to support his 4 children through school. He had to ask Kiyosaki for help, feeling like he was about to die from exhaustion and still couldn't save enough money for his kids' college. Kiyosaki suggested that he should quit his busy jobs, spend time learning about investing, and make money by buying low and selling high on small apartments. Sure enough, after this friend was willing to change, he became an investment expert, said goodbye to the difficult days of earning money through manual labor, and finally experienced the joy of making money with his brain. The author believes that money is a concept. If you want to make more money, you have to change your concept. Instead of telling people to blindly quit their jobs to help him make money, Kiyosaki advises us to use a wealth-building mindset. Financial freedom cannot be achieved through mechanical labor, but through learning more, thinking more, and practicing more. It's not that poor people don't work hard. They lack strategic thinking. They often think that diligence and hard work will eventually pay off. They would rather suffer in their current position than accept the challenges of new fields. They would also rather do repetitive work than accept the challenge of new knowledge. But Rich Dad said in the book, job security is not everything. Continuous thinking is everything. A self-defeating mindset paralyzes action. In the book, Kiyosaki tells a fable about a chicken. On a farm, while the other animals were sunbathing, one chicken kept running around the coop shouting, "The sky is falling! The sky is falling!" The author believes that many of us are like this chicken, living in constant panic and anxiety, and thus missing many opportunities. A self-defeating mindset is a real taboo for getting rich. We often fall into a state of panic over the slightest disturbances from the outside world. In the face of a crisis,
we often fall into a state of fear and scare ourselves. Just like the author's poor dad, he was always afraid of failure, afraid of loss, and in the end could only complain, "I can't." Meanwhile, Rich Dad didn't overthink it, but acted immediately to achieve his goals.
Former ABB chairman Percy Barnevik has a famous view. 5% of success is in the strategy, and 95% is in the execution. God won't give you what you want. Only what you do will bring you the corresponding rewards. You need to remember, thinking is just the problem. Doing is the answer. The adding wood paradox, reversing positions. In the book, the author mentions a paradox, the adding wood paradox. Sitting alone on a cold night with a pile of wood in his hands, a man yells at the big fireplace, "As soon as you warm me up, I'll add more wood for you." As we all know, only when he is willing to add wood first will the fire burn and be able to warm him up. In reality, many people suffer from this adding wood paradox. They want to get rich, but only think, "What do I want?" without much thought for what others want. In the book, both Poor Dad and Rich Dad are very kind people, but they have a big difference. Poor Dad puts himself first and will help others when he has a surplus. But Rich Dad puts others first and always believes in the win-win rule. If you want to get something, you have to give first. If we don't have an altruistic and giving mindset, but always live in this adding wood paradox, we might only make a little money our whole lives, but will never touch real wealth. Getting rich is like being a good person. It's a process of giving first and receiving later. So, these are the 6 insights I've gathered from this book. Actually, Rich Dad, Poor Dad once brought Kiyosaki a lot of accusations and criticism because the author exposed the true nature of the poor without mercy. But time is the fairest judge. Over the past 20 years, this book has proven that working hard but still holding on to a poor person's mindset is the root cause of why we can't become wealthy and prosperous. After reading this book, you must understand that the real purpose of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is to wake us up. Don't work for money. The real asset is never money, but our minds. The best investment is not the market, but ourselves. In your career and life, to go from poor to rich, you can only rely on improving your thinking and awareness. Finally, I hope you can use the powerful weapon of mindset as a lever to change your own life. If you found this video helpful, please share it with those who need it, give me a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to catch the latest videos. If you have any feelings or thoughts, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next videos.